I certainly know that fans of the U.S. men's national team have dozens of other things to keep them busy, keep them up at night, entertain them with, other than USA Mexico. Well, don't look now. We're just over a week away from a competitive, albeit not official, not FIFA date related, USA Mexico game. That's something to be excited about. You know how long it has been since we have seen USA versus Mexico? It's been 13 months. That's about 5 or 6 months too many, right? The reason you can argue that USA Mexico is the biggest rivalry in the sport, don't at me, or you can. Please leave a comment or say whatever you want. And I'm not saying it is the biggest rivalry, but I'm saying it's in the conversation for biggest soccer rivalries because of the amount of times that these two countries play. And it creates a cut above. We have game after game. And we had a ton of them right before the World Cup from June 2021 to March 2022. So we're talking about 9 months. There were 4 games. There was the Nations League final. There was the Gold Cup final. Then there was 2 World Cup qualifiers. By the way, the United States won 3 of those, and there was a tie. The last one, March of 2022 at the Azteca. Mexico 0, USA 0. So here we are. It is a somewhat made-up fixture. The inaugural All-State Continental Classic. It's going to be held in Glendale, Arizona. And it's a moneymaker. There's no ifs, ands, or buts whatsoever. And it falls in between a lot of official dates, right? We had the Nations League semifinals coming shortly thereafter, not that far down. You'll have the Nations League final. You will have the Gold Cup. You have the Nations League semifinals, I should say, which will give us another USA Mexico. We already know those two will play. That'll be June. And then the Gold Cup, which announced its venues today. And we had a Canadian city in the long list and some new places in St. Louis and Cincinnati. So great that the Gold Cup will branch it out a bit. I would like to see the Gold Cup played somewhere other than the United States, frankly. But I know that's not where the bread is buttered, so to speak, with regards to cash and the money that it brings. But I'm excited about the Gold Cup. But I'm excited about the April game as well. And because it's not a FIFA date, players will not be released from their European clubs. So as we were told prior, this will be a largely domestic-based roster. And we've heard that from the coaches. USA and Mexico, Anthony Hudson, Diego Coca, will be fielding teams from MLS/USL and Liga MX. And that's not a bad thing, by the way. It's not a bad thing because we're at a very interesting point where personnel-wise, the U.S. can field really good teams. You can experiment a little bit. You can bring in younger players. But we saw the Nations League team. There were a lot of good European-based players that didn't make the cut. And I will point out here today on the Soccer OG. Let me pause there for a moment. Check out the Soccer OG podcast where all podcasts are available. We have the one with Brian Sciaretta, which has been heavily viewed. Really appreciate the support. Check it out if you haven't listened to it. Coming out soon, Christian Miles, my colleague from the Fox Sports World, Fox Soccer Channel days. We talk about El Tráfico, El Clásico Angelino, call it what you will, the LAFC and the Galaxy. We'll also talk a little bit about where the game is headed. So check out the Soccer OG podcast. Like and subscribe our video here on my YouTube page under my name, Max Bretos. Where was I? Well, as I was saying, the MLS roster is going to be very good. And you might be able to sprinkle in some European-based players of guys that are not playing regularly that could be released. So this game is on April the 19th, which is a Wednesday. There is no midweek games in MLS. I mean, players are going to be released. And by the way, many of you might listen to this video and that roster will be released. And we will talk about that when it is. So MLS teams, I think, maybe it would be naive to think that they wouldn't miss a game. If it's for Wednesday, I imagine they'll be released after the weekend. So they report Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, probably have Thursday off, come back with their games Friday. So maybe they won't miss a game in Major League Soccer, but they might in the sense that after missing a week of training, several of these players might not play extended minutes or start that following week. So it's not exactly a soft landing, but they're trying to not disturb the waters as much as possible, because this has been shoehorned in there. And I get the feeling from everyone when you know this is a made-for-money event, and you're like, all right, it really shouldn't be there, but we know what it's there for. But now that it's here, let's put that all behind you. Let's get excited about it. 13 months since USA Mexico. So when we look, first of all, let's start with players that aren't in MLS that might get called into this. Immediately I think of guys that are in Europe that aren't really playing that could be allowed to leave. Gaga Slonina. The top three goalkeepers right now, Matt Turner, Zach Steffen, Ethan Horvath, aren't going anywhere. They're all in the midst of very important stretch runs here for their clubs. Gaga Slonina, not so much. He would kind of be the fourth on that pecking order, all due respect to Sean Johnson, who, if it's not Slonina, it would be Johnson. Johnson's not a bad goalkeeper to start in a game like this, having been on that World Cup roster. So goalkeeper, you're set. Paxton Aronson is in Germany. Caden Clark as well. Maybe they get a chance to come back. What about Alejandro Zendejas? Now, Club America has been very generous in allowing him to come out to the point where he's been cap-tied by the United States. Maybe Club America will be like, we've done plenty, we're not releasing him here, and that would be understandable. We are in debt to Club America, and that's from Anthony Hudson's words about Alejandro Zendejas coming through. But because this is a USA Mexico event, maybe he gets released. So you have that group of players. I don't think anyone from the Nations League roster is going to be brought in. Maybe if a guy like Chris Richards, I doubt it'll be Chris Richards, but maybe they can get a rep in there because they didn't play in March. And part of this April game, according to Anthony Hudson, was to look at the guys from the Nations League, look at the guys from the April window, mishmash them together, and come up with the best roster for the Nations League semifinals, and then again at the Gold Cup. So there might be a surprise or two from Europe in there. Maybe. But let's just say that list I gave you, the rest is MLS based. And the strongest U.S. team right now, because a lot was made of the Nations League where at one moment when Miles Robinson was scratched, that you didn't have an MLS player. And everyone's like, oh, yes, the changing of the guard. Everyone relax. Embrace the fact that MLS can create a really good starting 11 for you for a game like this and really give you a really solid 18-man roster where you're not just giving spots away. So like guys like Sebastian Lletget and Jossie Zardes and Jackson Ewell, there's no room for them because they are not high enough. That's how far the MLS player pool has come. So we talked about the goalkeepers. Defensively, Walker Zimmerman, a starter at the World Cup, and Matt Miazga, who's highly regarded, could be your center back pairing. Jalen Neal, an up-and-coming young defender for the Galaxy. I think he'll get in the mix here as well. Those are three good center backs just off the top of my head. Josh Winder, another guy who hasn't made his move to Europe. I imagine he's going to be in here as well. What about the fullbacks? Really good fullback options. DeAndre Yedlin, World Cup player. DeJuan Jones, I think, could really be there in this next cycle to 2026. John Tolkien, another really good fullback. So there's 3 or 4 there that can fill those positions. Kevin Paredes, these are some guys for the under-20s. We don't know what his situation's going to be. He comes off the bench for Wolfsburg. We got to remember the under-20 World Cup is, and that's where you want Paredes to play, is coming up in May. But maybe some guys slip in here, including him. Jack McGlynn, the Philadelphia guys, McGlynn and Sullivan, all those guys could get a sniff here. Although I think many of those will be saved for March. So we've got enough cover in these positions thus far. I want to give credit to Alex Calabrese. He's a really nice follow, American soccer fan who's got a good following right now on social media, is really smart with some of his posts. And he said, why don't we just award the April midfield to the 3 LAFC players? As I cover LAFC, I co-sign this. And just so you understand, Kellen Acosta, who will be part of any of the strongest U.S. men's national team, he's still in that mix for 23, 26-man roster. Timothy Tillman, who's been a revelation since coming to LAFC and starting almost every game upon his arrival. And then recently green-carded U.S. citizen Ilie Sanchez, who's up there in years. But think about it. You get those 3 guys. It won't happen, I don't think. But the conversations are going to happen. You get these 3 guys. They are familiar with each other. They know where to be and how to play. And all 3 are very deserving. So just there as another option to show you how this MLS roster can do very well. I got to call Seattle this weekend. Josh Atencio's great. Obed Vargas, he's ahead of Obed Vargas, who's going to go with the under-20s. But Josh Atencio was a man of them, if not for Denny Buanga, was probably the best performer this past weekend. Aiden Morris is 21. Columbus Crew revelation, maybe, although he's been called up for other camps for the U.S. I don't know where he sits, but hey, look, again, let me stop it right here. Every American player, because it's USA Mexico, wants to play in this game. Let's just say 95% of them, maybe 97%, want to be in this game. So if they get called up, they'll come. And they're probably telling their representatives, their agents, they want to go. So they're making that abundantly clear. This is a big fixture, and they will want to come. So now we have that central midfield, I think, pretty well covered. Paxton Pomykal of FC Dallas, another guy you can throw in there. James Sands, who was with Rangers, now at New York City FC. Eric Williamson. These are all guys who are on the cusp of the World Cup roster at some point. They were all there. Christian Roldan made the World Cup. He's out there. This list goes on and on. That's just, your midfield is stacked. Do you have a difference maker? No, not really. Do you have a playmaker? But man, you have these guys that are all really worthy of being on a U.S. men's national team. And then we get into the attacking options. Jordan Morris has been sensational. Made the World Cup roster and playing better now than he did at the end of 2022. He has 8 goals in Major League Soccer, playing as a number 9, can also play as a left wing. Jesus Ferreira, he has 4 goals. He was on the World Cup roster. Another guy that you could probably put in with ink. Brandon Vasquez, he's the last number 9 that we haven't really seen. Can we pop him in there and he be the goal scorer? Look, just that trio. Morris, Ferreira, Vasquez, that's pretty exciting. Paul Arriola, get him in there. Has Nicolas Gioacchini, who was a 22-year-old forward and been getting some mix. Is he worthy to get in that as well? Cade Cowell. I mean, this is a good team. This is a very good team. And by the way, Mexico is going to have some interesting choices as well with their Liga MX players and their MLS-based players, like Chicharito Hernandez. Maybe Alan Pulido if he's healthy. There's a couple out there that certainly could be considered. So this is going to be a lot of fun to see that. But I've given you an 18-man roster, which will entertain and wear that shirt very proudly. So let's embrace it. Enjoy it. I think it's on TBS. Middle of the week for our entertainment. There's not much going on TV-wise, sports-wise in the middle of the week right now. We'll have Champions League coming up here. Champions League is back. That's very exciting. Did I mention Miles Robinson? I know he got called into the Nations League, but he's an MLS player. Does he get Brock? Zach McGraw at Portland? I'm very excited about it. And the main reason I'm very excited is it's USA versus Mexico. And it's been 13 months. And we have been red hot. We as in the United States. 3 wins and a tie in the last 4 games. You have to go all the way back to September of 2019 for the last Mexico victory, and it was in a friendly. So the United States 3-0-1 in the last 4 in games that mattered. 2 finals, 2 World Cup qualifiers. April is 19th to date. June 15, we have the Nations League semifinal, so we'll get our second USA-Mexico. Possibly get a third USA-Mexico in the Gold Cup. It is the most common final after all, isn't it? And let's get these games going again because they're fun and they get the juices flowing and we get to talk about them here on the Soccer OG. We'll be back to talk about the roster when it's announced. Again, I expect a 2 or 3 European-based players to get in there, and you will see that this is going to be an in-demand roster to make it. And remember, it's in that giant building here in Glendale, Arizona. So you're going to turn that on. You're going to be like, it's going to be a ton of Mexico fans, but you're going to be like, yeah, now we're talking. And let them make money. Isn't that, at the end of the day, it's a good feeling that you can put on USA Mexico and it's a moneymaker. Can't say that about every sports fixture, but you can say it about this one, the Soccer OG. Check out the Soccer OG podcast where all podcasts are available. Like and subscribe us here on my YouTube under my name, Max Pretos. We're going to get a lot of videos over the next few weeks. We'll see you very soon.